This is our Findhorn Barrow podcast, and I'm currently in the Horizon building in the Forest Enterprise Park with Anne McEllin from Ways to Make It Count, an accountancy firm.
First of all, just to say hello, Alex, and thank you for having me. I first came across the Findhorn community and the Findhorn Foundation in lockdown in 2021. I was living and working in the northwest of England, and it was a bit of a stressful time. All of a sudden we had to work from home office, not meeting people. And I was looking for, if you like, a way to relax, and I found Findhorn Foundation through Facebook, and they had online meditations, so I began to do those. And I'd heard about Findhorn, the place, and it intrigued me. And I really found the meditations helpful. And because I'd linked in through Facebook, a little thing popped up on my Facebook feed advertising the position of the lead steward for finance. And we were just in the process then of, Lee had sold his practice, we put our house up for sale, we were looking to move, we thought we would move to the lakes. But this little advert for the lead finance steward really intrigued me, because when I clicked into it and I looked at the particular skills and experience they were looking for, it's like, oh, I tick a lot of that. Wouldn't it be really nice to go and help this community before we retire to the lakes? So I applied, not really expecting to get an interview, but I was interviewed, and long story short, I ended up here. I spent 2 years being the lead finance steward for the foundation, and it was quite a turbulent time. They'd just gone through quite a traumatic period with Brexit and COVID and the arson attacks, and they were struggling financially. Before I came here, they'd already made quite a few people redundant, but it very soon became apparent that it wasn't returning to the type of having the number of visitors and the income stream that it used to have. So it became clear quite quickly that they had to go through a restructuring. So I went through that with them, and as part of that process, after 2 hard years of work, I, in my own meditations, just felt that it was time to release that. However, I'm so grateful because I found Findhorn, I found Moray, which is the most beautiful part of Scotland. It's a hidden gem, so people in England don't really know about it here. And we absolutely loved it. And I'm really glad to say that instead of retiring to the lakes, we've decided to put down roots here. And when I left the foundation, I found that quite a lot of the community groups on the park came asking me if I could help them with their accounts. And I never thought I'd go back into accountancy, sort of to run my own accountancy practice again. But I could see a real need here within the community. So, yeah, I set up my practice and called it Ways to Make It Count, because this time around, I'd really like to serve those organisations and individuals that want to improve the communities, improve the planet, make this world a great place to live in, and help them in any way that I can with their accounts and finance. So long story short, that's how we came to open Ways to Make It Count. And now my husband Lee, who's also a chartered accountant, has come to work for me. Makes a change because I worked for him for 20 years. So, and we've got another employee and a subcontractor. So we've grown really quickly, and so far it's great fun.
But what makes it different?
What makes it different? We're not the type of accountants who just do your year-end accounts and complete your accounts and send your information into the revenue and just do the technical things for you. We really like to develop a good relationship with our clients and walk their path with them and understand their enterprises and bring all the skills that we have to help wherever we can. So in particular, if somebody is having a startup and they want to undertake an enterprise they've never been involved in before, but they have this thing within them, it's something they've always wanted to do and try and explore, we would work alongside them to put together a plan, maybe to raise money, but definitely to make sure that they were long-term financially sustainable. I see a lot of people here living out what I would call their ikigai, and ikigai is a Japanese word that means offering your work to the world that is your soul work. It's the reason you came here on this planet to be here now. And it's the beautiful intersection of four things. It's what you really want to do and the work that you love to do. That's section 1. Section 2 is something that you are particularly skilled at and have aptitude and training in. Section 3 is something that the world really needs now, here. And section 4 is something that you can make a living at. And it's the beautiful sweet spot intersection of all those things that is your ikigai. And I see a lot of people who can get the first 3 but can't make it financially sustainable. And yet, if they were to ask somebody with commercial skills to work with them, to look at ways at how they could make a living out of that, that's something that I feel is my ikigai, to actually walk alongside and work with other people to help them so that they can make their particular, something that makes their heart beat faster, the reason they want to get up in the morning, that's what they want to do. Those are the kind of people that I would really like to help and to make it financially sustainable. And also just to make sure that they understand what they're undertaking when they set up. A lot of people, for example, if they want to open a shop, plan what the shop's going to look like, the market they will serve, everything like that. But sometimes they don't think about all the technicalities of what goes along with that. Having been through this process with very many clients, we've accumulated quite a lot of experience that we can help people with. Similarly, at the end of the process, when somebody is deciding it's time to move on, we can absolutely help them think through how they want to hand over this enterprise that they've had and have grown and have loved. So we walk alongside with them to make sure that they find the right people to take it over and that they sell that to them in the way that's both ethical and complies with all the legislation and is the most advantageous way for them. Having worked in this field for such a long time, I'd really love to develop a way for small and medium-sized enterprises to measure the impact that they have both on the local communities and on the planet. For larger firms and corporations, they've been able to do this for a long time. So they have ESG reporting, which is environmental, social and governance, and they have to put this kind of information in their annual statutory accounts. There's no such framework really for the majority of small and medium-sized enterprises, but I think, especially in a place like Findhorn, where we're more sort of environmentally and ethically aware, wouldn't it be wonderful to have a way to monitor the impact that you are having on your local community, on the health, social and environmental prosperity of that community and on the planet. So if there's anybody out there who would also like to think about ways of measuring this, I'd be really happy to co-create something with them.
How can organisations balance choosing being ethical and maintaining sustainable finance? A lot of people, it feels like a choice between should I buy something to make it cheaper and affordable versus, more expensive and fair trade and organic. Or
I think that this is a tricky one, particularly where you're starting out and you've got to watch every pound that you spend. I think if you truly want to trade in an ethical way, you've got to set your standards from the beginning and choose carefully the suppliers that you want to work with to make sure that they're aligned with your ethics and values. And also just to put a little bit of thought in how you work with your community. So, for example, when it comes, say, to taking on staff, and you can't afford maybe to pay somebody the living wage, but you would really like to help people in your community, there's other ways to do that. So here in Morayshire, we have the Moray scheme, which is the Moray Employer Recruitment Incentive. And this is a way where Moray will help you. They will support some of the expenditure to employ somebody who perhaps is struggling to find work otherwise. So that is a win for you in the fact that you have financial support. It's also helping train up your local community. In the world of accountancy, back in the early 2000s, there was a real drive to offshore all of your standard accounting, which meant that a qualified accountant, say in India, who was paid a lot less than people here, would do your accounts. So you would just send them over to India, they would be done and returned to you. We decided that rather than do that, we'd rather invest in our local community. So we took on an apprentice, and it was fabulous. It was really great, and I would recommend that to anyone. While I absolutely support the development of economies in India, I think we've also got to be mindful of the fact that we have people here who would love to be trained up too. It's taking the time to be really mindful, do your research, and choose the ethical choice that aligns most with what you want to do. I can't remember the last time I purchased anything off Amazon. When you purchase something from Amazon, yes, you pay for the staff in the warehouse where they're working, but a lot of that money goes straight off to the haven where they keep the money and protect it from paying the fair share of tax. They calculate what they need to pay precisely, but whether it's a fair share is another question. And instead, I choose to shop at the local shops around here, which are fabulous. I mean, the high street here in Forest is one of the few high streets anywhere that is thriving. And it's because people choose to buy locally. You get to meet the people, you talk to them, you find out how they produce things. It's really wonderful. And we've got places like Wester Hardmuir Fruit Farm. Not only is their fruit the best I've ever tasted, but you know that when you spend your money there, you're investing in the local economy. For instance, when I buy things for my practice, when I set up, I bought my computers from a local organisation that was a voluntary organisation having to wind up. So rather go and source brand new computers, I had the green choice of buying something that was recycled and from a local organisation that I knew would do great things with that money. It just takes a little bit of time, and maybe if you're the kind of person who automatically looks at Amazon and automatically looks for the lowest price item you can buy, what I would say is sometimes you get what you pay for, and by paying just a little bit more, you can actually invest in more ethical choices.
Are you aware of any tax incentives or grants to support being sustainable or being more sort of...
If you're looking to invest in something to make your enterprise more environmentally friendly, I would actually recommend you look at the Highlands and Islands Enterprise website. So HIE is actually here on the Enterprise Park at Forest, and they run all kinds of grants for the full range of size of enterprises. The other people who are great to speak to is TSI at Moray, which is Third Sector Interface at Moray. They are a great they're a great partner to network with, because they are in touch with most of the local voluntary and social enterprise organisations, and they will also know where you can apply for grant funding from. It's also really good just to join local social media, because you find out the local organisations that are offering micro grants. And if you're just starting up, a micro grant might be great for you. And then as you grow, you work towards something like an HIE grant. Right at the other end of the scale, if you're a big, long established organisation, there's a whole range of grants out there. I personally have worked in the past with organisations that have applied for grants from the lottery. And once you are established with the lottery as an enterprise that delivers what it says it will, they will want to work with you again in the future. There's no one size fits all, and there's a lot out there, is what I would say.
You're going to be looking more towards supporting social enterprises
Yes.
and things like that, rather than your traditional companies, that sort of
Yes.
thing. Can you talk to me sort of about the advantages and disadvantages of being a social enterprise versus a charity?
I think that at the outset, it's really important to choose the right legal structure for you. So a charity or a SKIO, you need, if you like, quite an independent group of people who are going to be the trustees, and it's their job, if you like, to stand away from the operations and instead look at long-term strategy. They will appoint the employees, and ultimately they are responsible for that enterprise. If you want to set up your own social enterprise, but you want to run it yourself and have full control, something like a community interest company is what you should be looking at, and there's quite a lot of those in this local area. So in that way, you and your friends can get together, run your own enterprise. You can still apply for grants, but you might not be eligible for as many as if you were a charity. But you have advantages in the fact that you can be more flexible. Speak to somebody like an accountant who's seen the range of them. So, for example, there's also cooperatives. Not many people use them these days, but sometimes they're the exact right thing for what you want to do. So, the advantages of social enterprise, what I would say is it's a great way to come together as a community to solve a problem. So, for example, I've seen it work where there's a lack of facilities in a town. So you come together to build a community centre or a youth club or a playground and continue to run it in the long term. One of the advantages is, again, you can apply for grant funding, and that's really great to set you off. But what you then need to do is to transition into becoming a financially self-sustaining organisation, and that's often where these enterprises find a bit of trouble and need a bit of help, because they attract the kind of people who are very keen and enthusiastic community people, but probably haven't had the experience of running something to break even or make a profit. You need quite a hard-nosed commercial friend to walk alongside you and point these things out, and to actually prompt you to charge the right price, which is sometimes a higher price than what you think you need to charge, in order to pay for all these other things.
What do you feel is missing in the Park Ecovillage community at the moment in terms of organisations?
Okay. What do I feel is missing? Gosh. One thing that really strikes me is about when I came to the park, I love to work with entrepreneurs and people who have a passion and want to turn that into something that can provide a sustainable living for them. And what I find amazing is, in such a small area like the Findhorn Ecovillage, we have so many different enterprises that have started. We have got Findhorn Hinterland Trust, Universal Hall Promotions, EFCBS, AES Solar, Biomatrix, NFD, Ecopia, Weaving Studio, The Pottery, Findhorn Flower Essences, Findhorn Press, and all the individual self-employed people who work as therapists, artists, all those people who set up on their own, trade, take that risk, offer what they have learned at Findhorn to the rest of the world. And that's really what makes Findhorn magnetic and attractive for people to come here. And long may that continue. I think it's a great place to come and learn new skills, and having learned those skills, amalgamate them with the skills you already have, and offer something to the world that you really want to. When I was an elected member to the local authority and on the executive, I held the portfolio for housing strategy. So I know quite a bit about housing and affordable housing. What I feel is missing in the park at the moment is there isn't one organisation who takes on that role as, for example, a registered social landlord. The advantages of having just one organisation to do this is that you grow a lot of in-house expertise and you focus on that one issue, and so you bring all of your talent to it and you get the right people together with the right skills to do that particular piece of work. Social housing being part of a lot of different groups and organisations on the park, it's quite scattered and there isn't that focus that I think would be a real advantage for this community. On the other hand, I look at the organisations that have evolved, and understanding the history of this community, I fully appreciate and understand why they've evolved in the way that they have. But if you were starting from scratch, you wouldn't have the number of organisations on the park that you have now. When I was in England, I was a local parish councillor. There were 1,700 adults. We held parish council meetings every month. Everybody was invited. There were elections every 3 years. But we were a very open parish council, so anybody could come to a meeting, and the first half hour was open floor and anybody could bring anything. And if we thought it was something that we needed to look at, we would take it away, do research and come back with answers at the next meeting. But it was a really clear structure and we achieved so much. Everybody knew who to ask, they knew the lines of reporting. I think if the park could evolve to something more towards that, that would be really helpful. Personally, I think that the park could use an umbrella organisation that holds all infrastructure, because there's a little bit of confusion between who's responsible for what, and if something needs to be paid for, who's going to pay for it, and understanding and putting together a long-term plan for maintenance of assets. I think we're at a bit of a moment in the community where we have got an opportunity to really come together and collaborate and have some quite tough discussions about what shape we want our community to be in the future. And if we miss it, it's going to take a long time to come back around again.
Have you encountered any organisations in the park where you feel like this represents where the park's going? This represents the future? I
have not been involved in the new organisation, Ecovillage Findhorn Community Benefit Society, I think it's called EFCBS, I think. I worked with them a little bit to start with to set up the ledgers, but I've not been that closely involved with how they're operating. I think potentially that could be a great organisation to take things forward. It's got a lot of people who are willing to invest in it, both the money and the time and the skills. So that has great potential. But there are other organisations on the park like Ecopia that have a long-term history of social investment and helping out other organisations, and they do it so well, but they're very quiet about it. What I'm really impressed with is the foundation, through offering the SKIO to the community, is inviting those organisations to come together, to sit around, together and talk about the assets that the foundation would like to hand over. Financially, we all need to streamline, because financially this community cannot support this number of different organisations. And I think I would love to hear that once that group had met, that was the way that they were moving.
Theoretically, it's a good idea, but in practice, because it's been like that for so long, people have got used to a certain structure and certain power dynamics and all that sort of thing. So it would take someone with a bit of force to try and break through that.
Yeah, I think that you're looking for somebody with extraordinary skills to come in to do that. They've got to gain the confidence of the community. They have got to be able to work with the community in a way that respects and honours how this community works. So, for example, you couldn't take the structure I had in England and try to bring it here. It just would not work. From what I've seen and from what I've experienced myself, once you're in a front-facing role that interfaces with the community, the scrutiny and the pressure is huge, absolutely huge. When I first came to the foundation, we lived on the park, but I soon found for my own mental health, I had to move off the park because I couldn't walk out of where I was living without people asking me questions. And it's almost like it can consume your whole life. It is difficult, and you come in for a lot of scrutiny. Not only have they got to have the skills and the experience and the spiritual grounding, but you've also got to be able to handle a lot of people who will not agree with what you want to do. And it's really easy to criticise when you've not held a position of responsibility. What I would say is, if ever you feel like you want to offer an opinion that can be seen as a criticism to somebody in a position of leadership, to think about it first. And think about if you were in their shoes and various people were asking you to do a plethora of different things, how you would weigh up all those expectations and move forward. And also just to offer them some appreciation for the hard work that they do. So if you want to talk about how you're not happy with something, to start with appreciation of the person and everything that they are holding, and to open up an appreciative space first before you then talk about how you would like things to change or how you think things could be changed.
What's needed, from your experience, what's needed to take someone, okay, they might be critical right now, but there's obviously something in them that they don't believe that they can make a difference, so they'd rather sit on the sidelines and criticise. What does it take to help move someone from there to a position of power and responsibility and cooperation?
They may not want to move to a position of responsibility, nor should they be expected to be if that's not what they want to do. However, what was really interesting is last night I was at the NFA meeting for new people, when some of the elders were talking about what the community was like here when it had only just started, so kind of in the 60s and 70s. And a couple of people spoke about the lead steward Francois Touquin when he was here. He held meetings where he wouldn't move forward with anything unless the meeting was unanimous. And a couple of people said it could be painful to sit through hours of meetings to actually get to the point where it was a unanimous choice for the whole community meeting there. But what it did do is it allowed everybody to have a voice, even those people whose views were kind of at the edges and the extremes, because often that voice actually had something to say that maybe other people hadn't thought about. And from what I heard in the meeting, Francoise would take would take the meeting through the points that these people were raising to see if there was any way they could be resolved. A couple of people said the meetings would go on for hours and it was really painful. It went round and round in circles, but at the end of the day, A, everybody's voice was heard, and B, the whole meeting had felt that it had thoroughly gone through every objection possible to what they were proposing. And even if they weren't able to offer something that everybody agreed with, they had allowed people the opportunity to have the say, and then to say, it's not something I'd really want to have, but I'm prepared to accept. I can't remember the form of words, something like safe enough to try. With so many people in community now, that is a really difficult task.
It would take months.
It would take
with
months.
A number of people.
It's tricky. It's really tricky. We all want a happy community. We want things to flow. We want to be creative, but it takes really skilled people to hold that. And again, it's about how we communicate in community, because some people may feel like they don't want to speak because they will get verbally attacked. I find the community fascinating. I find the history of it fascinating. It's great the way that NFA are holding these evenings for people to come and learn about the history of the community and how it started and how it evolved. I think that there's a lot to learn from our elders, a great deal. But I feel that what we're kind of missing at the moment is that spiritual, or those few spiritual, charismatic people who come to Findhorn and act as a magnet to bring other people in.
To be truly magnetic, you have to be a little bit controversial.
Yes, you do. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That is. That's the issue, is finding somebody with the right level of being controversial, and being controversial in the right way. I mean, there's a real opportunity at the moment with the state that the world is in, somebody to just cut through all of that and say the whole essence of Findhorn is about love. It's about opening yourself to live in a loving way within your community. It's about learning to live with people who rub you up the wrong way. And it's about developing the spiritual maturity to work alongside them and to actually see the teaching that they bring to you and to treat them as your teachers. Because it's those particular people you find very irritating who teach you the most about where you yourself have issues. So yeah, I try to, when I find somebody irritating me, taking time to clock that and thinking, step back and think, oh, now, what is it about me and my experience that I find particularly irritating? What can I learn about this? And there are many people, particularly the elders in this community, who do that so beautifully.
I got to stop that.
I don't know what you're going to make of that. I don't know how controversial I want this to be.